Hallo und herzlich willkommen zurück zu Lamplight City. Wir haben herausgefunden, dass die ein wenig Eheprobleme wahrscheinlich haben, oder wir vermuten es. Und das Kind ist auch noch entführt, also Fragen über Fragen hier. Wir schauen uns mal erstmal die offensichtlichen Sachen an. So. Aha.
Probably won't be another year or so before the child gets any practical use out of those blocks beyond putting them in his mouth. Probably won't.
Ja, es sein können, dass es zwei Sachen sind.
Interesting. This fabric looks as though it came from a garment of some kind.
Huh. There's a small emblem sewn onto the side of this piece of fabric. It just says SS.
Somebody's initials, maybe?
Ja.
Be careful not to cut yourself, Miles. I don't think the Harris family has ever seen blood that isn't blue. Be careful not.
Ah, er sein, dass wir es mitnehmen können.
Look, you can see the balcony extends all the way around the side of the manor.
Ja.
That would make it rather easy for someone to access this window from the outside.
No evidence of what was used to smash the glass, though.
Gut, durchgeboxt vielleicht, ne? Das kann ja
It
sein.
looks rather flimsy. Let's not try sitting on it. It looks rather...
Okay.
Nice view of the garden from up here. The steam-powered bottle warmer. Certainly beats having to do it in the fireplace, or in the case of my parents, over a barrel fire. Look at that.
So.
The kid has a toy chest. My sister and I used to have to keep our toys buried in the backyard. Of course, that is because the only toys we had were dead rats.
Okay, er ist sehr arm aufgewachsen, so wie es aussieht. Gehen wir mal raus.
The Harris family certainly has a nice view from which to look down upon the world. I wonder if they use the balcony to give speeches to the gardeners.
Können wir dann mal durchgehen?
The Harris... Oh,
Nope. Ich habe mir gerne mal von außen angeguckt.
fancy. Some poor servant's probably gonna get a flogging for leaving it in here, though.
Also, nur weil die eben so schlimm waren, müssen jetzt ja nicht alle so
Who
sein.
in their right mind would need that many drawers?
Let's see what we have here.
Oh, dürfen wir das überhaupt?
A very poorly written letter addressed to Mr. Harris.
I don't suppose it's a letter of admiration.
On the contrary, the author seems quite upset.
Mr. Harris, hier ist eine wöchentliche Erinnerung zu... Oh Gott. Okay, das ist mit Absicht so geschrieben. Hier ist deine wöchentliche Erinnerung zu wissen, wie arg ich dich hasse. Wegen dich ist meine Frau tot. Meine Frau war wundervoll Frau. Du hasse mir enorm. Ich hoffe, dich geht es genauso schlimm wie mich. Arthur Davins.
Nothing else of
Oh, well, at least we got to play a rousing game of Wardrobes are usually always full of wonderfully dark secrets. An empty suitcase. I suppose Mr. Harris must travel every now and then. One thing is for certain, Mr. Harris uses entirely too much starch on his shirts. Yeah, it seems like this is where Mrs. Harris keeps her unmentionables. I like the ones with the frills and the stitched cat.
Aha. Okay, also das war ja wieder gottlos laut hier. Achtung.
Paperwork and receipts. Nothing particularly interesting here. More lacy underthings. I wonder which Harris they belong to. Mr. Harris's color selection is almost as drab as yours.
Let's see if there's anything of interest in any of the pockets.
So, Mr. Harris is a fan of the ponies, is he? I'm sure that's not causing him any trouble at all. Mr. Harris. Oh, another four-poster. The Harris family certainly makes no secret of their wealth. It looks like a pile of women's clothes. Must belong to Mrs. Harris.
Wühlen.
There's a handwritten note among the clothes.
Miriam, mein Schatz, ich muss dich heute Abend treffen. Jetzt viel zu lange nicht gesehen.
Nothing.
Interessant, was wir hier alles gefunden haben. Mit einmal kurz gucken. Schönes Spiegelbild übrigens. So.
It's nice to see that tea is still served here even in times of tragedy. I'm sure the only location the Harrises care about is wherever they are at any given moment.
Ja, okay. So.
I have some questions for you if you're up to answering them, Mrs. Harris.
I'll try my best, Mr. Fordham.
So. Wir werden nicht über die Notizen sprechen.
Tell me what you know about your son's kidnapping.
Oh, my poor baby.
Mrs. Harris, I know this is difficult, but I need as much information as you can give me so I can bring your son back.
Yes, you're right. I have to stay strong. For Charles, it happened sometime between 6 and 8 last night. Both my husband and I had gone out. Charles was in the care of his nanny, Mrs. Davis. I arrived home first, around 8:30, and that's when I found this scene in the nursery, as it was.
And what was it you found?
Mrs. Davis, unconscious in her chair, the broken window, and Charles missing from his crib. Malcolm arrived home shortly afterwards, around 9.
Warum?
And then
Ich dachte, die waren
immediately
zusammen.
sent our butler, Mr. Havelock, to notify the police.
Echt? Warum? Warum? Ich dachte, die waren zusammen weg.
We stayed up waiting for any contact from the kidnappers, but there was nothing.
You said you arrived home first. Where were you last night?
Oh, I was visiting with
Lüge.
some of my friends.
Sie
We
war bei
gathered
R.
at one of their homes for a concert.
Sie war bei AR. Sie war bei R.
I
100%ig.
see. And your husband?
He was at the social club with his friends as well, I believe.
Wait a minute. I know this attitude all too well. This woman is hiding something. Most likely from her husband. I doubt it's voices from beyond the grave, so the question is, what's her secret?
Na, wir machen mal.
What can you tell me about Mrs. Davis?
Well, she's worked for us since Charles was born, a little over 6 months.
How did you come to employ her?
Malcolm's mother had a friend whose daughter she used to care for. She came highly recommended. We've never had any problems with her. She's always been a dream.
Where is she now?
In her room, I would guess. With Charles missing, there's little for her to do.
Where might I find her room?
There's a small building just around the back of the manor. Hers is the 4th door from the left.
Mhm.
Can you think of any reason why your son would be a target for kidnapping?
It could be that someone wants our money, or some lunatic who's angry about the new airship. My husband's an investor, and my father-in-law owns the company building it, you see. I just don't know, Mr. Fordham. Frankly, the fact that something like this could even happen is just terrifying.
I found this bit of torn fabric by the broken window.
No, I've never seen it before. Do you think it was left by the kidnapper?
Perhaps. Did the initials SS mean anything to you?
No, I can't think of anyone or anything I know with those initials.
Tell me about your son.
Charles is our only child. He's such a good boy. Never makes a fuss. Always very sweet. Oh, Charles, you must be so frightened out there without your mother. Oh, please, Mr. Fordham. You have to bring him home.
I'll do my best. Tell me a bit about yourself, Mrs. Harris.
Mr. Fordham, my son has been kidnapped and is out there alone, terrified and confused. What could I possibly tell you that would make any difference to you finding him?
I suppose you're right, Miss. I found this button in your son's crib. Does it look familiar at all?
No, I don't recognize it. It looks like it came from some cheap coat. Is that what the ruffian who took my baby was wearing?
That's what I'm trying to determine. That's all for now.
Very well.
Okay. Ich glaube, die haben beide Affären.
I have some questions for you, Mr. Harris.
Yes, of course.
Hui, nochmal so viel Text.
Tell me everything you can about the kidnapping.
I don't know much. I was out last night while it happened.
Where had you been previously?
I was out with friends.
Lüge.
My wife can verify the time I arrived home.
It seems hiding something from your spouse is an activity both Harrises partake in.
I found this bit of torn fabric by the broken window. Do you know anything about it?
Looks like it came from a piece of clothing.
Did the initials SS mean anything to you?
Maybe? I can't really say. You'll have to excuse me, Mr. Fordham. I've got quite a lot on my mind right now. If I can think of anything, I'll be sure to let you know.
Tell me about your son.
Charles is a good boy. Very quiet. Miriam had wanted a child almost from the moment we married. You know how women are when they have their hearts set on something.
Nice to know you're not the only one. Hey, Miles.
The first 2 times Miriam was with child, she suffered some unfortunate accidents. She was devastated, as you can imagine. So when Charles finally came along, he turned out to be quite a blessing. I can't imagine what sort of depraved madman would take him from us like this. You must find him, Mr. Fordham.
I intend to, Mr. Harris. Tell me about yourself.
There isn't much to tell, really. My life has been fairly well publicized in the newspapers.
Let's pretend for a moment that I skip over the society pages.
Well, I'm an investor. My father Clyde runs Harris Construction Company, which I will someday inherit. Any other details about me are fairly trivial nonsense, I think.
I found this button in your son's crib. Does it look familiar at all?
No, not at all. Do you think the kidnapper might have left it behind?
It's a distinct possibility. Mr. Harris, what can you tell me about these?
What? How did you...
Listen, I'm trying to help you and your family. I can't do it if I don't get the entire truth.
Do you think we could discuss this somewhere more private?
I suppose we could.
Good. Let's move to the nurse.
Jetzt haben wir sie getrennt. Das ist sehr gut, weil jetzt können wir sie nämlich auch auf den Lover-Brief da ansprechen.
Shall we continue our conversation, Mr. Harris?
Yes,
Moment.
Those are all.
Sehr schön. Er ist jetzt weg. Das heißt, wir können mit ihr reden. Na, wenn ich es jetzt verkackt habe, muss ich Self-Scumming machen,
I
aber...
have some questions.
So.
I found this note in your bedroom. What can you tell me about it?
What? You had no right to go through my things?
Na super, sicher.
Mrs. Harris, I'm just trying to find your son. The sooner I know about any clues I might find, the faster I can proceed with my investigation.
Fine. I got that note last night from Roland.
Roland? Wer ist denn Roland?
Who is Roland?
Roland is a special friend.
Ein ganz besonderer Freund.
I see.
Oh, don't you judge me, Mr. Fordham. You have no idea what my marriage has been like. Marrying Malcolm wasn't my idea, nor even his. The whole thing was orchestrated by our fathers. They thought merging the 2 families would be a good business arrangement.
Is your marriage an unhappy one, then?
It wasn't easy at first, and it didn't get any easier as it went on, either.
So then, why not end it?
Mr. Fordham, we are a respectable family. There are certain considerations. Besides, I had no legal grounds. For all his faults, Malcolm is a very faithful man. Almost frustratingly so.
Ja, krass, ne? Also so eine Generation, ich denke jetzt an nicht meine Großeltern, sondern aus einer anderen Ecke. Die hassen sich und die bleiben aber zusammen, ne? Bis sie draufgehen. Die hassen sich, die wollen eigentlich nichts mehr miteinander machen, aber das gehört sich nicht. Auf dem Dorf kannst du das nicht machen.
Then, somewhat unexpectedly, we had Charles. At least that made things bearable.
I'm sorry for you, Mrs. Harris, I really am. But I think I should talk to this Roland.
Why? He has nothing to do with this.
That's for me to decide. Where can I find him?
I don't know. I've never been to his home. We usually meet at a hotel.
Okay, Hot Take. Sie ist die Mutter, das ist klar. Der Vater ist Roland und der will seinen Sohn haben. Weil er das rausgekriegt hat.
Can you tell me anything that would help me track him down?
Well, he's a musician. He plays the piano at some clubs in Gascon, but I don't know which for sure.
How about his last name?
I don't know that either.
Nicht schlecht.
I gather you don't talk much.
I refuse to answer that question, Mr. Fordham.
It's a good thing I don't have a stomach anymore, because I can guarantee you its contents would be on the floor right now.
Wenn die nur am Schnackseln
That's all for
sind,
now, Miss.
Very well.
wollte der andeuten. So, das haben wir gemacht. Jetzt reden wir mit ihm hier über alles.
Shall we?
Yes,
I found this letter in your bedroom.
You went through our things?
Uh-oh.
I'm a private investigator, Mr. Harris. It's part of my job.
Of all the insolence!
You're upset, I know, but do you want me to find your son or don't you?
Yes, of course I do. That letter was sent to me by mistake. It was written to my father. Well, if you can even call that writing.
Have I ever mentioned how much I hate rich people? Because I really hate rich people.
Your father. Doesn't he own the company building the new airship?
Yes, that's right. He's been receiving many letters just like that one since the Lygia disaster. But that Devons fellow in particular has sent one every week, along with a bag of chicken bones and dust.
Voodoo.
How peculiar.
Not only that, he leads a daily protest in front of the construction yard where the HMS Lenore is being built, trying to halt production. My God! How did I not see this before?
See what?
Devons! He has a grudge against this family because of what happened with the Lygia. I'd put money on him being involved with the kidnapping somehow, as a form of retaliation.
I'll just have to speak with Mr. Devons and see for myself.
Hmm.
Now that your wife is out of earshot, tell me about the kidnapping and what these betting stubs have to do with it.
Right. As I said before, it had already happened when I got home. I had just come from spending the evening at the meadows.
I see. I take it your wife isn't impressed by your hobby?
Was ist denn das?
I promised her weeks ago that I would stop going,
Ach so,
but I've had such a good streak lately.
jetzt ein Spieler.
The last thing I wanted was to upset her further, yet it would be foolish of me to just give up on something so promising.
Can you think of anyone who might want to do you harm by taking your son?
Several, I'm afraid.
Go on.
I haven't exactly had the best of luck, Mr. Fordham. That's why this latest streak was so important to me. The truth is, I've gambled away most of my money. I've had to take out several loans so Miriam doesn't get suspicious.
Oh.
If she ever found out, it would be over. I can't lose her, Mr. Fordham. I just can't.
Where have I heard this before? You know, things would be so much easier if people just talked to each other.
Ja. Heftig, das stimmt auf jeden Fall. Also, Kommunikation macht vieles so viel einfacher.
I've tried doing business above board, but lately I've had to seek other resources.
What do you mean?
I was forced to visit a lending office. The owner was a rather shady Sambo, but I figured he'd be easier to deal with than the usual sheenies that run those type of places.
Can you believe this guy? Maybe we should just leave the kid be. He'd probably be better raised by wolves.
Na gut, das wissen wir ja noch nicht.
Who was the owner?
Mr. LeFay. I didn't bother to get his first name. His business is an abattoir row in Chumley. Horrid place. But I was desperate.
You think this Mr. LeFay may have taken your son as collateral?
Let's just say there isn't much those type of people wouldn't do to put a crown in their pocket.
Okay.
How goes the construction of the new airship?
There have been some complications, but nothing we can't handle.
Could you be a bit more specific?
Well, I already told you about the trouble with protesters at the yard. And we're blocked pending Royal Maverick's review of the safety regulations for the prototype etheric diffusion engines.
Der ätherischen Zerstäubungsmaschine.
Agitators and red tape aside, we should still be on schedule to have the Lenore finished and in the air by the end of the year. But really, Mr. Fordham, what the deuce does this have to do with finding Charles?
Lass mich meinen Job machen.
He has a point, you know.
Those are all the questions I had for now.
All right.
Geht er
If you
zurück?
don't mind, Mr. Fordham, I'm going back to the living room. I don't want Miriam getting suspicious.
Gut, dass wir vorher Miriam noch gefragt haben. Sehr schön. Also alles durchdacht. Dann hauen wir mal ab und gucken mal, was wir... Oh Gottes Willen. So viele Locations. Kreditbüro. Ja, hier.
Come in.
Hello. It's me.
Good day to you, ma'am. I'm Miles Fordham, a private investigator. I'm looking into the kidnapping of Charles Harris. Are you Mrs. Davis?
I am. Oh, bless the spirits. They've sent someone to help at last.
Korrekt, deswegen bin ich hier. Schön haben sie sich eingerichtet. Ich bräuchte einen zweiten Stuhl.
I have some questions for you, Mrs. Davis.
All right.
Okay, Mutti.
Tell me about the kidnapping of Charles Harris.
Oh dear, may the spirits forgive me. I feel so awful. Charlie was my responsibility, and I failed.
Mrs. Davis, that is beside the point. What's important now is finding him and bringing him home. To do that, I need your full cooperation.
Oh, you're right, Mr. Fordham. I'm sorry. I just need to collect my thoughts, get the negative vibrations out of my mind. Now, what specifically would you like to know?
So viele Dinge. Okay, komm. Dialogfolge.
What time did the kidnapping occur?
I'm not entirely sure. I know I was in the nursery having a cup of tea about 8:30. I remember feeling very drowsy. I must have passed out then because the next thing I knew, I was being woken by Mrs. Harris.
Okay, die wurde auch gedruckt.
To
Hier.
think, whoever took Charlie did it while I was in the room. Oh, may the spirits grant me peace.
Do you happen to take any sort of sleep medications or soporifics?
Oh, dear me, no. Those types of drugs cloud the mind and make it impossible to tune into the ether.
Ja.
You say that as though it were a bad thing.
I beg your pardon?
Ja, tut nichts zur Sache. So viele
Can you
Hinweise.
think of anyone who would have wanted to take the child?
Well, I'm not one to gossip, but I am quite sensitive to the energy and vibrations that people give off.
Uiuiuiui.
I get the impression that Mr. and Mrs. Harris aren't very happy in their marriage.
Ja gut, das ist jetzt nicht so schwer gewesen.
Ah, come on. Anyone could have picked up on that. Anyone except you, that is.
Mr. Harris likes to stay out late and not take his wife with him. I can't remember the last time they went out together. I don't know what he gets up to, but it's possible he may have made some enemies.
Can you think of any reason why someone would want to kidnap Charles?
It might have been for money, but last I heard there was no demand for a ransom. I honestly don't know why this happened, Mr. Fordham. I just hope you find the poor child. He must be scared to death.
Ja, ich klecker mal alles erstmal durch und dann sprechen wir.
I found this piece of torn fabric in the nursery. Does it look familiar to you?
No, it doesn't.
Ups, Entschuldigung.
I found this button in the baby's crib. Do you recognize it?
Why, yes. That's one of Barney's eyes.
Aha.
Barney.
Charlie's stuffed bear. It's his favorite toy, a gift from my friend Linda.
Gute Linda.
I didn't find a stuffed bear in the nursery.
Then whoever took the baby must have taken Barney as well. Oh, at least the poor thing has something to comfort him. Bless the spirits.
Ja, die Geister haben dafür gesorgt. Wunderbar.
Who is Linda?
Mrs. Linda Walker. She's a good friend of mine. As I said, she gave me Barney as a gift for Charlie.
Can you tell me anything else about her?
Oh, she's a lovely girl, very much in tune with her spiritual nature. I greatly enjoy my conversations with her.
When was the last time you saw her?
Oh, I don't remember.
Ja gut, beim Bären wahrscheinlich, oder?
No, wait. It was at the last Spectre Society meeting on the 19th. That's right.
Mhm.
What is the Spectre Society?
It's a club for spiritualists and amateur investigators of the paranormal. We meet twice a month to socialize and discuss our findings.
I see. Sounds fascinating.
Oh, I don't expect you to share my beliefs, Mr. Fordham.
Oh, I have a bit more experience than you'd think with regards to the spirit world.
Stimmt. Ja gut, wir müssen auch ein bisschen open-minded daran
You
gehen.
can say that again.
Where exactly do these meetings take place?
At a private residence in Gascon.
May I have the address?
Why, yes, it's 325 Rue Jameau. Are you going to seek spiritual guidance to find...
Perhaps. You never know what might be worth looking into.
Mhm. So, gleich haben wir es geschafft.
Do you have Linda Walker's address?
No, I don't. I never visited her home. I get the feeling she doesn't like having visitors or being home very much. I was the same way after my husband died. It was embarrassing for my friends to see me living so differently.
Für meine Freunde war es beschämend zu sehen, wie... Okay, ja gut.
But I feel it's not just a matter of pride for dear Linda. I think there are lots of bad memories associated with where she lives. I try to stay away from places like that. They leave a mark on the soul, you know.
How long have you worked as a nanny?
Only a few years. I never had to work when I was married. My husband had a lot of money. Unfortunately, he was in great debt, and after the spirits took him back to the ether, I wasn't left with much. So I began working as a nanny to make ends meet. But I consider taking care of children a reward in its own right.
Thank you for your
Okay,
time.
ja, danke. So viel Dialog.
That chest is full of undressed dolls? What the hell is wrong with this old bat?
Finde ich sehr gut. Okay.
These
Welche
are all
Bücher?
books on spiritualism and the occult.
Ja, okay.
The Harris family doesn't seem to hold the comfort of their servants. I think a bed of nails would be an improvement.
Okay.
Another Harris hand-me-down, no doubt. You'd think they would have washed it first.
Gut, wir verziehen uns.
I'll
Wir
be
haben-
going now, Miss.
May the spirit
Ja, die Geister. Ich habe da irgendwie... schwierig für mich. Club der Geisterkundler.
Hello, sir. Welcome to LaFay Lenders. I'm the owner, Chester LaFay.
Super cooler Teppich.
Are you looking to take out a loan?
Not today, I'm afraid. I'm Miles Fordham, a private investigator.
Look, I don't know what you've heard, but I run a clean business here. I don't need any trouble.
And I'm not here to cause any, for the moment.
Just keep your nose where it belongs. We should get along fine.
Ja.
That's the latest model Computron. They don't come cheap. LaFay must be doing pretty well for himself.
Reden wir doch mal mit ihm. Wieder Dialog. Juhu.
Mr. LaFay, I'd like to ask you some questions.
Fine, but keep it brief.
Tell me what you know about Malcolm Harris.
Ah, Mr. Harris. Took out a loan about a month ago. Still hasn't paid me back. In fact, he sent along a letter yesterday, saying he was having an emergency and needed more time.
Das kann ja nicht das Kind sein, weil das ja heute Nacht erst passiert ist.
I probably should have refused to do business with him. As soon as he walked through the door, I could tell his type.
Spieler, bestimmt.
What type is that?
Upper class, bored with his life, trying to escape and doing it through vice. In his case, gambling.
This guy is good. Maybe you can pursue money lending if the whole private investigator thing doesn't work out.
But for some reason, I pitied him and decided to give him the loan anyway. Compassion isn't exactly an asset in this business, you see.
Nothing to worry about in your case, then.
Aside from that, I don't know anything about him. I prefer to keep how much I know about my clients to a minimum.
Ups, Entschuldigung. Tja.
Exactly how much did Mr. Harris borrow from you?
Is that relevant to your investigation?
Ja.
It would help to have an idea of exactly how much he owes you, yes.
I don't feel comfortable telling you the exact amount, but I will say it was over 500 crowns.
A considerable sum.
Tja, keine Ahnung, wie viel das ist.
Like I said, I probably shouldn't have done it, but I'll get the money back one way or another.
Aha, wird so oder so das Geld zurückkriegen.
What's your policy regarding people who don't pay their loans back?
There are a few options. For the first 3 months or so, I'll send them a letter reminding them. After that, I start to threaten them with legal action. You wouldn't believe some of the things people do to avoid paying back their loans. One client went so far as to fake his own death.
Brauche ich sofort.
Do you ever employ any more unusual methods?
If you're implying that I do anything illegal, Mr. Fordham, you're mistaken. Look, I have a family to consider. I'm not about to go get my hands dirty when there's plenty of legitimate ways to handle the situation.
Stabile Ansicht.
Take a look at this piece of fabric. Does it look
Passt,
familiar
oder?
to you?
Sure, Looks like it came from a jacket. In fact, yes, it's the same fabric as the jacket I'm wearing.
Would you mind if I took a look at your jacket?
Sure, not a problem. Here.
Du musst nichts aufmachen, gar nichts.
No tears in mine, huh?
Der Typ hat was zu verbergen. Er ist viel zu selbstsicher.
Not a one. You clearly take good care of your clothing.
I don't mean to discourage you, Mr. Fordham, but I've seen a lot of people with this style of jacket. Hell, even Malcolm has one. I remember he was wearing it when he came in here.
I see. Thank you for the information, Mr. LeFay.
Vielleicht auch nicht, also, Okay, das war's schon. Ne, ich muss doch mal mit ihm reden.
I've got some more.
Go ahead, then.
Darf die Jacke nochmal sehen?
Are you aware that Malcolm's son, Charles, was kidnapped last night?
I had no idea he even had a son. As I said, I don't ask my clients too many personal questions. Though now you've told me, I suppose that would explain the emergency you mentioned in his letter.
Passt nicht.
Tell me a bit about yourself and your business, Mr. LeFay.
What's to tell? I lend people money, they pay me back.
Surely it's not that simple.
Well, of course I charge interest, otherwise I'd never make a profit. I know people don't look upon the service I provide very favorably, but without my help, there would be a lot more unhappiness in the world.
I don't know.
How did you go about starting up this business?
I didn't. My former employer, Mr. Roth, left it to me when he passed.
That was rather good of him.
Yes, well, he didn't have any heirs, and he considered me to be the son he never had. He was fond of my family, too. I try and keep my work and home life as far away from each other as I can, though. There's a lot of things in this line of work that my wife and daughter are better off not knowing about.
I think that's all for now.
Ja, das könnte ich nicht besser sagen. Bis zur nächsten Folge. Macht es gut, liebe Freunde. Ciao.